Run your day with Runday.ai.
Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday.
Hi, good morning.
How are you today? I am calling from Fort Lauderdale. How about yourself?
I'm calling from New York City.
Wonderful. I grew up in Manhattan as a kid. My dad opened some fashion stores on Broadway back when sequence dresses were a new thing. And so, how do you like New York?
Love it. I've been here 12 years. So after spending 2 years in Washington, D.C., I'm actually quite happy to be back in New York.
I've barely been back since COVID. I think I've gone once to the Hamptons and then to see Back to the Future, but I got to start going again. I used to go all the time. Well, tell me more about Tech CXO and what you're doing with your customers.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to talk about go-to-market, AI, and all that good stuff. Basically, what I do as a fractional CMO and CRO is to help B2B tech CEOs figure out why the growth engine that they've built their company on has stopped working and then kind of rebuild it.
That's what we see a lot as well. So, Runday is an AI brand ambassador, but we're really a data company that's an alternative to advertising. And so we run into a lot of situations where people, they did well with ads, but, before AI. And now, usually because they don't have content to reinforce the ads, they're not getting the results that they used to. They're plateauing or struggling sometimes. And so we often help them. But what are you seeing out there? Like what kind of patterns? When do people need help and bring you in?
Yeah. And what's interesting that you've pivoted, you've done some pivot on your product as an alternative to advertising. I think the reason why, and I didn't mention that, but I think it's important. The reason why I chose the fractional model is because what I saw in Silicon Valley and New York was that companies don't fail because they lack idea. They fail because they outgrow their growth model. And yet the way we hire leadership hasn't evolved. We either hire a
How
full-time
often has the
executive.
company outgrown it versus how often has the market changed?
It's hard to separate. Well, I think the two are connected, right? But the point is that organizations are being asked to evolve and change on a regular basis, but yet the way we hire people is very traditional. So hiring a full-time executive too early or too late, but then you bring in consultant who, really stay at the surface. So I've built my fractional practice around a different idea, which is what if I could bring this execution level strategic leadership exactly when the company hits an inflection point. And it's been a game changer, especially as a woman, as a Gen X. I think there's a lot of assumptions that we're supposed to make people feel comfortable in, the business world where changing and being a digital transformative agent is nothing close to being comfortable. So as an outside and fractional executive, I can feel the impact that I can have versus being inside. Now, you talked about the pattern, right? I actually, even though I'm a B2B SaaS and tech expert, I've worked in energy, finance, retail, you name it, but I do see the same pattern. And, whatever you got from 0 to 5 million or 10 million that stops working, most company will misdiagnose the problem. They think we need more leads, but the issue is almost never the top of the funnel. The real problem
Yeah.
that I see is, and we're talking about B2B here, the real breakdown is what I call the executive value gap. Like at some point, the messaging no longer speaks to how executives make decisions. Maybe it's too product driven. Maybe there's too much about the feature, or maybe it's disconnected from the business outcome. So what happened is that the deals stall and because there's no interest, and it's not because there's no interest, it's because there's no conviction.
No conviction on the prospects part.
Yes, and even from
Okay.
an internal standpoint.
Or internally. I see that a lot in larger companies that they have these marketing ideas, but then they're not, they 90% execute and then they just can't pull the trigger at the end.
Exactly. But we have to remember that across all industry, what I'm saying, there's 4 key elements that's been really going strong for the last 10 years. And I've kept repeating that. And I say that to all my clients, the reality of the market, no matter what industry you're in. So first of all, we are in an abundance of product. In any category whatsoever, you'll have 5, 10, 20 competitors, right? Which means that if someone doesn't like anything about the font, the color, the messaging, anything that does not resonate emotionally with them, they'll have multiple options, number one. Number two, because of this abundance of options, we're all overwhelmed, right? There's an overwhelming amount of information in our business life, but also in our professional life, personal life. And so as a result, we literally have 7 seconds to catch someone's attention. That's the new reality for marketers and salespeople.
To add on to that, I would say people also have app fatigue. I mean, personally, I'm like, every time I have to add a user to a system, it's not that I can't figure out how to do it. I've just done it like 100 different ways, and it feels difficult to figure it out on something new when I have some expectations on where it should be. And so when, my first 30, 40 apps that I learned and really mastered, like I could keep those in my head, but now I have hundreds in my head. And it's like worse than being like a new person who's never used a SaaS app before. And so we're seeing that, and our solution to that is really being an agentic model where it's really just like you're a member of the team that you're chatting with, say, hey, could you do this for me or give me the results for that? And so our vision is really that you don't learn our tool, that, you sign up with Runday and you're able to go just use your calendar and your email like you normally do. And we operate within those apps you already have rather than creating our own thing.
Making it easy for customers. Yeah. So back to the reality of the market, abundance of product, which means there's a lot of competition. Second, being overwhelmed with information, which makes the attention really scarce. And the third is trust issues. We've all had, bad experiences personally or professionally with people that we thought we could trust. So doing anything without this element of trust embedded in your emails, in your advertising, in your story, and that also requires authenticity. It's not a given, and people are very worried now about any newcomers, even the tech, the early adopters that were really the sweet spot for emerging businesses. And then the fourth is that, and that's the part of marketing that I really enjoyed, psychology and neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
We don't make rational decisions. We think we do because we think we're rational, but we're actually just
Come on, I'd make them all the time.
purely, well, we are make, what do you, I think I used to say meaning making machine,
Yeah.
100% emotional. So it's first the gut feel, the emotion, the identity that, who we think we are is why we do what we do. After that first initial reaction, we're going to justify through a series of stories that we have in our head. But initially, we're really identity-driven creature. So, and one last thing about, I think you mentioned about the repeating patterns across industries. When we talk about growth problem, they're all identical, no matter what industry you are. And I see kind of 3 repeating patterns that I can think of on top of my. The first one is over-reliance on the product truth, right? We've built something great, it should sell itself. And I see that a lot in the tech and SaaS.
Well, it's so hard because someone like me, it's my 7th company. I've done it so many times before and it's worked, and it doesn't work today, does it?
So that's, over-reliance on product truth. The second is under-investment on executive narrative. Like we're not speaking the language of the buyer. And I don't know why it gets worse and worse. Maybe because there's a shortcut with AI. And so you don't have to face the reality. You think you're producing, you're going fast, but you're not speaking the language. So that's the second one. And the third is now more than ever a fragmented go-to-market system. Marketing, sales, and product, they all operate in silos, and that makes it very difficult. So
Yeah,
that's the pattern that I see.
That's what we're solving at Runday, that last element. Well, thank you so much for those insights. If somebody wants to work with you, or the members of the audience are seeing these patterns in their own business, want to have a call with you, should they go to the website or just reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I'm a pretty open book. So I'm definitely on LinkedIn, and always to share what I've learned, have conversation about what's the next business model, the next playbook, because as a CMO and CRO, all the playbooks that I was given by Silicon Valley, I spent 17 years over there, being a serial entrepreneur with my fair share of successes and failures, I should say failures and successes, and, doing I've done a master, a business school. All those playbooks or obsolete. So I'm fundamentally looking for the next playbook and what's next and how to make sense of this world.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sanjay. It was great to meet you. Thank you for the conversation.
Stay ahead of the curve, hit that bell for notifications, and join us next time.